Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Should we say good morning, emotions?
Good morning,
Yes.
emotions.
Good morning, emotions.
Well, very excited about this new segment that we're launching today. And I'm very excited to be joined by Bree and Hannah this morning as well. What are we going to talk about today? Friendship. So much to talk about as far as friendship goes.
Right. You almost just want to take a breath before
Yeah.
you're diving in. It's a lot. There's so many things that we can dive into.
Especially now, I feel like everything's changed so much as far as how we meet our friends or what do we do, the dynamics with COVID, and it's been so long. So, what
Yeah,
do you think, Hannah?
the whole landscape has really changed for what it means to be a friend. I think
Yeah.
our friendships look differently. We have to sustain them differently. We have to sustain ourselves differently. So friendship goes along with that. And I've noticed changes in my own friendships as well. And I noticed even periods of time have changed. Like if I go a really long time without talking to somebody, that period of time means something different than in a non-COVID time.
Definitely. And also, like, why are we talking about these kinds of topics and what's this show? Maybe let's say a couple words before we get started. So this is a new segment that we're calling Good Morning Emotions. It's kind of a morning show. We're happy to have you join us with a cup of coffee and kind of like start the day if it's morning where you are. And we're going to talk about all kinds of topics that are everyday life topics. And so this week we're going to start with friendship. And it's kind of a meta thing because it's going to be us becoming friends throughout this segment of the show that we're making. So you're going to get to see us get to know each other because we don't know each other that well. And, these topics are all have to do with EQ. And so that's why one of the reasons why we want to talk about EQ without being sitting on a desk and teaching people something. We just want to apply it to our own lives. And so that's why today we're starting with friendship.
I would also add that friendship is just such a relatable topic. We've all have had our share of either friends that may have started as our siblings, down to the friends that you make at school, from as early as preschool all the way to and through. And as you said, in a pandemic, in this new space, this new reality that we live in, exploring what friendships take and exploring the ins and outs of how emotions show up in those friendships, especially when we're all trying to just survive and take care of ourselves. I think it's important for us to talk about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would also add it's like such a safety net, especially in tough times like now with the COVID and other challenges that we might experience with work or other things. Like friendship has always been this thing that we reach out to get support, to get energy if we need to, or so. Yeah, it's even more important now, I would say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's say hi to a couple of people. I see we got people from Italy, Ilaria,
Yay.
Juan from Vietnam. So exciting to be joined by all of you.
Matt.
Love the guitars. Me too.
I got one behind me too. You just can't see it.
Oh yeah.
The little neck right there.
We got our Santa Cruz, Jenny. And so just so you know, feel free to ask us questions. Throughout this show, we're going to pick up some questions as well. And you will see later there is going to be a special segment of today's show that we want you to be a big part of for the future shows and even for today if you have. So I guess let's start with this question: like, who are we? Like, what are we doing here? What brought us to be part of this show? Who wants to start?
I was just gonna say I'll go ahead because I was thinking that while we were saying hi to everybody, I was like, we're saying hi to you. Maybe you don't know who we are.
Fair enough.
So hi, good morning. I'm Hannah Bowers. This is our first Good Morning Emotions show. We are your co-hosts today. I am a singer-songwriter. That's what I do and spend most of my time doing. That is my way of introducing myself because it consumes so much of my life. in a great way. And I am also a mental health advocate and huge lover of emotional intelligence and program coordinator for 6 Seconds, who is presenting and producing the Good Morning Emotions show.
Thanks, Anna.
That's me.
Thank you, Hannah. I will continue. My name is Brianna Wofford. I go by Bree. I currently am living in Atlanta, Georgia. I am an educator. This is my 3rd year as an assistant principal. I also am a huge advocate for mental health, as you all probably could agree that within education, it's extremely important to have that foundation first for yourself so that you can show up for all the many people that we serve and work with. And then I would also add, just with 6 Seconds, I've recently become an ambassador for 6 Seconds, and just trying to expand not only my knowledge, but have a greater impact on individuals and helping them discover their own emotional intelligence. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Bree. And I'm Tom. You might know me, or if you don't, it's always awkward for me to introduce myself. I never know where to start. But I'm part of 6 Seconds, and I do research and development in 6 Seconds. Engineer and singer-songwriter as well. Have my own band that I'm very excited to be part of, and we've been writing throughout this quarantine a new album, so it's exciting to get back into it in these weird times, having music as your friend.
Music is and music makes friends.
So many friends. I gotta say, yeah, I feel like when I moved to the US, if it wasn't for music, I probably wouldn't had 99% of the friends that I have today. I met everybody through music connections. Yeah. And yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
and to continue with that, I think of some of my first and fondest memories of making friends had to do with dancing or being at some kind of gathering where, there you have it. Music was, a big part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess this is kind of like leading us to one of my first questions here today. That's like, why are we excited to talk about this topic today?
I will start. I love making friends. It is actually one of my greatest passions in life. And I feel like when people talk about, their passions, like, yes, I'm passionate about music, but I'm a wild extrovert, and I love making friends every chance that I get. I think relationships and people are incredibly interesting, and friendships are really powerful in bringing some connection to the human experience, which I would argue is the human experience. So I just love making friends, and I am happy to be making friends with both of you as we're talking about this. And I'm happy to talk to other people about it because I love the process of making friends with strangers that you don't know. And then what happens within those friendships and the communication of it, I find really interesting. And just the psychology of two individuals, kind of friendship is like a dance, just finding their rhythm with each other.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process. I wonder how many of you guys on the chat are relating to that kind of style of like really being able to make friends with anybody. It's amazing to watch. I had some friends that were like that. Yeah.
We do have one comment. It says, you all are young, and I'm curious to understand how your friend relationships changed during this pandemic. I can see my son craving for meeting up with peers now and in person.
Man, I can start, I guess. This is kind of like why I'm excited about talking about this show today. I feel like I've always thought of myself as a great friend, and like really I had an easy time to make friends with people and cultivate really strong relationships. But I do feel like the pandemic really made it so hard for me because I'm not great at remote or calling people or organizing things. I'd much rather say, hey, let's just meet up and then we figure out what we do, or I just want to see you and let's just do something. But with this pandemic, I feel like it was so hard for me. Like my tendency was to keep to myself, even though I wanted to see people. It just didn't feel like the same. I just felt like, oh, it's not gonna be the same if we make a plan, and because we can't do this thing or we can't do this other thing. And so I'm excited today about learning how to be better throughout this time.
I would agree, and I'm also excited just to hear about the different perspectives, because like you said, Tom, in this pandemic, you may want to just take care of yourself, and you kind of may revert from extending or feeling safe enough even to meet up. And I can imagine what it's like for children, because they don't have an option to say, okay, well, I'll safely socially distance at your house, when your parents may just say, no, we can't visit. And Zoom, although it is Zoom and FaceTime and having those online platforms to be able to see your friends, yes, it's helpful, but it's not the same. And for me, I'm the type of person who just thrives off of that energy when I'm with individuals in a space, in a room, and could easily revert and be more introverted because I'm like, well, I can't see you in person, then I may not make as much of an effort. Or you just have to get creative with the efforts that you make, even if it's just sending a message to let somebody know you're thinking about them, although you can't spend that time with them. So I'm excited to talk about a lot of different things and to dive in and maybe take away some new things to enhance the friendships that I have.
Definitely. We got some great comments. I'd love to read them in a minute. Why don't we play this little clip first? Oh, man. So I found this clip because I'm kind of a nerd. So I love these guys, and I love algorithms and flowcharts. You might know that about me already. But I'm so curious about, there is so many things that I think are interesting on this video, but if you were to think about your making friends as an algorithm, as a flow chart, what would you put in there in that flow chart?
This clip definitely had my, I don't know, it made me laugh, but it also made me very reflective, because I often find myself, I gravitate towards structure, routine, and things like that. And I had to step back and ask myself, do I approach friendships with a sense of an algorithm, to where it's so robotic that it's not really natural, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And hoping that wasn't the case. But then after a deeper reflection and thought, it's like, okay, when you're first meeting when you're first meeting someone, what first connects you is some kind of connection, some kind of commonality, or some kind of interest, and that somewhat can be an algorithm, because in math, it's just a set of steps used to get to solve a problem. It's like your procedure. If you tend to go out and you're sitting at a bar, you're sitting at a restaurant, whatever, and you can make those fast friends. Like Hannah said, she loves making friends. So those algorithms can come in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be as
scripted.
Yeah, scripted as like, okay, friend said no, okay, next question to ask, or friend's going through this, so I need to go through these 3 steps. I think, and that's also where our emotions come in, because how we respond and all of our emotions guide our behavior. That could also be an algorithm. But yeah, I'm interested to know you all's thoughts too.
Yeah, I think a really important note is that every friendship is unique. Friendships are like fingerprints. They're not alike. And you can have groups of friends where you have a common interest, but you will notice within that group of friends, your dynamic with every individual person is different. You don't have the same dynamic, even though you share the same group. And maybe the same thing brought you guys together, but the same things might not keep you together individually. Maybe you have to feed those in different ways. So you can take a group and be like, well, I only hang out with this person when we're in a group together. So maybe I want to build that relationship with them. What is something that we could do? And maybe that's something that comes naturally through like a conversation where you're with your group of friends and, you know, just following the natural flow, like no rigidity, like we're talking about, no structure. And it's just like, oh, now we're both talking about how we both like this band. I mean, that is a pre-pandemic example, clearly, but that would be an example of, you know, we both have this in common. So, you know, what if we went to that show? They're playing in town, so we can go to that together. I know I've had many friendships made from that exact experience.
But yeah, I would totally agree. I feel like depending on the person, like I feel like I have different kinds of friends, like many different kinds, and like it's part of it because I feel like depends on the way I met them and the way we became friends. But part of it is also based on their personality. I feel like every friend kind of brings out a different side of you. At least for myself, that's like, and maybe that's why we need all different kinds of friends, because we need to express our different sides of ourselves.
Yeah.
But I have this one friend that it's absolutely love, but I don't even know if we have each other phone number, but we are like meet randomly, like so we just go somewhere and I see him and then we have the best time. But it's just there is something so cool about like we just meet whenever we meet, and it's awesome. It's such a different style of friendship than other ones. Do you all have an episode or an experience that like kind of you would like to share about kind of like different kinds of friends or things that were cool that happened to you in this regard?
I believe I have a story that that is appropriate. That I'm curious for you two listening and for everybody else listening, if they want to, you know, comment along what they observe in it. What happened that worked in this situation? Because it was very unexpected and I feel unique, but also special. In that I was on a walk one day by myself. I had a bunch of time to kill and I had like nothing to do. So I was on a walk and I was running out of time. I'm walking back to my car and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? I don't know. Just sit in my car and like hope that somebody texts me back. This is pre-pandemic as well. And I had like 2 hours to kill. And I didn't have headphones, not going to walk around listening to music. But I'm on a walk and I come to this kind of awkward point on the path where I'm entering is like the end of another path. And I see a young woman approaching the end of the path where I'm going to be beginning. And I was like, oh, this is like, could be kind of awkward because we both are going to have to like turn around and walk the same way. And we're like meeting here at the same time. And so I just kind of approached it not awkwardly because I, you know, how am I going to show up in this moment? Not be awkward. That's what I decided. So we have like that small talk, you know, like, oh, you have a dog, a dog. But for whatever reason, what I felt in that moment was this sense of like openness and like trust between both of us. And I was like, I think we can keep walking together. So I'm like slow, like apprehensive a little bit, like kind of keep walking with her. And then we just started talking and really getting to know each other, asking each other questions. And I was like, okay, we are fully in this together now. And I was enjoying myself so much. We actually had a lot of things in common that I actually walked by the path that would have led me back to my car. And I was like, I'm having a good time. I don't have anywhere to be. I'm just going to keep talking to this person. And we are walking down the path. We went on a very long walk together, basically. And we are going all around town. And then after, I don't know, maybe like 25 minutes of walking.
That's a long walk.
Yeah, maybe my memory deceives me, but it felt like a long walk, and we really touched on a lot of things, you know, like we were really shedding the layers of friendship, right? Seeing each other on a more intimate level, to where she was like, okay, well, I'm by my house now. I'm going to walk. Let's walk towards my house. She wasn't like, I'm going to go home. Bye. She was like, let's go this way. And I was like, okay, I'm invited. And And then we get to her house. She's like, so this is my house. And she was like, you want a cup of tea? What are you doing? Like, we're having a great chat. I would hate for this to end. And I went inside for a cup of tea. And then next thing I know, we're playing music together. She plays guitar. She's showing me songs that she's written. And we hung out, I don't know, for another long time after that. Until it was actually time for me to go. I had spent all the time that I needed. And now we are still friends.
That's amazing. Talk about instant friendship, like connecting like that. It's so cool.
And Hannah, what do you think that it takes for two strangers to feel that safe, both physically and probably psychologically, to have, you know, the robust conversation that you were having for that, you know, amount of time, and still to this day remain friends?
Yeah, I mean, I think in that moment, like I said, I kind of could tell at the very beginning, like there was a sense of openness for both of us, where a lot of people, I think, in that situation would be like, hi, and like kind of, you know, close off the conversation by like not asking a question or not giving a long answer to whatever question is asked. So I think that we could tell, both of us, that there was a sense of openness because we were already engaging in conversation and showing interest in the other person by asking those questions and responding thoughtfully.
Yeah, I feel like an ingredient that I see a lot in making friends is like this curiosity that you need, you know, for the other person. Like, you know, what's your story? You know, tell me something. Like, I feel like it's almost like a value that you need to have about finding the great in other people, you know, and like being hungry for that.
And a listening ear, because that person also needs to feel like whatever it is that they're saying, that it's not just being heard, but you actually are interested and want to engage in that conversation.
And I feel like conversely, you know, like we have, not to be an EQ nerd, but on the change map, we have judgment and curiosity at the two opposites, right?
Yeah.
So it almost makes me feel like sometimes, and I did this before, you know, like when you meet people, you're like, you make it up your mind already after observing them for like a split second or a few seconds, right? Because it's kind of like a survival mechanism. We kind of have to like assess who we're dealing with, right? And then sometimes if you make too much, you know, assumptions, then you might lose that curiosity that you need to like make that step of connecting with somebody.
Yeah, I really like the word that you used a few minutes ago, Tom, which was curiosity. Or, yeah, you just used it again. Curiosity, so important. And I think there also has to be something internal going on with you. Like there has to be, maybe it's a sense of confidence, but to make that friend and to initiate into conversation. And I think that you can not just judge that other person, but you can judge yourself. And you have to stay curious to yourself. Like, you know, I asked myself that question in that moment. It's like, who am I going to be in this moment right now? I'm curious how I'm going to respond to talking to a stranger. And I think a lot of people, if we're talking about the change map again, a lot of people are in the fear state, right? And I think it does take courage to do something that is unfamiliar. For me, I'm an extrovert, so talking to a stranger isn't necessarily scary, but that is not at all the. I don't think that's super common for people to be so unafraid of that. I know if people are, you just walk down the street and people are scared to say hi to the person walking by them. It can be such an awkward thing.
Yeah, and I like that you said, you know, after us meeting this person, you assessed who you wanted to be. You chose your approach. You know, you choose yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I like what I think Lucy said in one of the comments, that maybe it's easier to make friends with a stranger because there's no history or obligation.
That's interesting.
Very much so, because when you start tying in disappointment or, you know, some of those other natural emotions and things that friends go through, it does then challenge your willingness to come back to that friendship, that relationship, and choose to continue to invest in it or cultivate it, making sure that whatever you have gone through didn't break your friendship. And I think that also changes as we get older, because we grow more wisdom to make those boundaries or have those expectations that we want out of friendships. But again, you have to choose to get through those tough times when they come, because they do come.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for like talking about getting older and how friendship changes, I feel like that's a huge. We were talking about this preparing for this show, right? We were saying how when we're kids, we have so many opportunities to make instant friends, and it really doesn't take long. And maybe one of the reasons why it doesn't take long is because of all these things we think of now that we're more getting older, and like we have all these like safety mechanisms that we have, embedded in our brains, or, you don't want to waste time, or you don't want to, there is so much that we think about when you're a kid, it's more like natural. And to this regard, like when you're an adult, like it can feel awkward too. Like it almost feels like asking somebody on a date when you're meeting somebody as an adult and you're like, hey, want to be friends? Well, can I have your phone number? It's like, it's such a funny thing, but it's so rewarding. It comes back to that vulnerability, I think, that you were mentioning, Hannah, without saying it, but you were saying, meeting this person, you had to step into that zone of like, I'm going to try to connect. I don't care how it goes.
Yeah. What could happen from this?
Yeah.
I would also say, before we move on, though, sometimes I wonder if children lack the wisdom to have truly healthy friendships. Because when it comes to boundaries, I feel like kids just get ping pong back and forth. You're my friend, you're not my friend. So-and-so did something to me, but I'm still gonna, share my fruit snacks or my juice box or whatever. Versus as adults, we have more of that wisdom and that choice to decide what's healthy for us as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I'm just thinking, relating this to personal experience, where I did kindergarten through 5th grade at a very small elementary school, where you are sort of in a weird way forced to be friends with everybody because it is so small. You see them every day. It's not like you can really pick and choose the people that you're around. It's like it's so small. You're going to have to, like, you don't have to, but you have the opportunity to be friendly with everybody. And I can put myself back into my childhood self and say, well, at the time I decided this person wasn't my friend, but we would still act like friends. It was sort of like my childhood brain learning to label things and saying that is friend, that is not, but we still have a relationship, and a lot of aspects of friendship can be seen in that relationship. It just doesn't quite get that friend label.
Yeah, that's interesting though. What is that friend label, because somebody in the chat mentioned, especially getting older, making that distinction between having friends and having acquaintances.
Yeah.
And like, who is your, like, if you had to think about all the people, all your friends and acquaintances and things, I have a hard time deciding who's who, it's a thin line, I think.
Yeah, I think that the line can be separated from, it depends who you are and what your approach is, but I would say friendly to friend is very different, because I know a lot of people that I am friendly with that I would not call my friend. And I think this is just an assumption. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this label, but going for it, I think it has to do with the choice. You were talking about choose yourself earlier. I think it has to do with, I choose to engage with you. I choose a relationship with you. I'm not, we're not connected by some other obligation or, mutual connection. It's like, I choose to contact you. I choose to hang out with you.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like it's also interesting to think about friendship in a way that sometimes we have expectations for a successful friendship. Thinking about that label. And we say, okay, if I call you and you don't get back to me, or if I like tell you personal stuff and you don't reciprocate, right? And then it creates a dynamic that it's unbalanced, or you're not getting what you need. Any thoughts on that?
Bree, do you have any? Not to put you on the spot. I just had a different thought, so I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Go for it, Hannah. Go for it.
So sorry, Tom. I totally spaced out when you were talking because I saw this comment that Lucy made that I just started spiraling off thinking about, which is perhaps the label doesn't matter, but the quality of the interaction does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just think that that speaks to just so much. But I think that, you know, in life, friendship, by putting a label on it, we're putting that judgment in there that we were saying that's not how to make friends, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like for me, that's why when I think about friendship or my friends, I kind of have like a pretty vast concept of it. I don't like to like say, oh, I only have these 6 friends and the other people are. I feel like it's a different kinds of friendship, but I like to think about friends in a bigger way.
I think it can be so complicated though. And I'm like, so I do have solid best friend. That is the label. And that best friendship, or those, well, I would say best friendship.
The strongest ones, yeah.
Yes, it's like you do have different expectations
Yeah.
and boundaries and so on and so forth. I mean, you share more. You're more likely to tell those secrets, or, you know, lean on that person for whatever you're going through. And then you have your work friends who may also have a very vital role in your life because they know the ins and outs of maybe the job that you're working or the stresses that may come with your job. And sometimes it's just good to have a friend while at work so that you can just be, you know? And then you do have associates or people you meet, people that you're friendly with. And there's just so many different types of labels, although I wouldn't say I naturally or even think about it. It's just like that's what the relationship is. And by default, we call it something.
I love what you just said, Brie, as far as like having a friends allow you to just be. And I think that's a great definition of what a friend is. I love it. Okay, I feel like we could talk about this for so long, but we are approaching a segment of the show that's called Mailbag. So what is Mailbag? So it's something that we're really excited to launch as a part of the constant part of this show as we keep doing it over time, which is we would love to announce the topic ahead of time, or, you know, so that you have time to think about it. And this time it was the first show after coming back from a break, so we couldn't do that. But what we would love to do here is give people an opportunity in a fully anonymous way, if they'd like to share a question about this topic that you would like us to discuss, and kind of give our perspective and hear from the people in the chat what they think, and kind of try to come up with strategies or unpack the situation. So today we did something kind of funny on this because we didn't have this mailbag, and we could have made it up. Yeah, we thought about it, but we were like, you know what? Let's get more creative. And we found, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Reddit, but Reddit is a forum where people can just ask a bunch of questions, and then, you know, if you're interested in that topic, you might just join that space and comment on the question. So we found a forum that was perfect for today's topic, which is friendship advice. So we would love to read you a post that we found that we thought was interesting for today's topic and for the time we live in. So let's go ahead and do that.
Am I being childish? This is my first post on Reddit, and I just need to vent. Basically, I've had this friend since I was a kid, 24, male. But I'm just fed up at this point. We've kind of drifted apart over the years because of college and living a few hours away. And I'm cool with that. It's just, he only calls me when he wants to do something when he has no one else or nothing else to do. Every time I call him or text him first to make plans, he ditches me no matter what, and it hurts. I don't want to. Oh,
sorry, too short. Let me put
okay.
it back.
I read slow, I guess.
Yeah, it's all good. It was great.
And it hurts. I don't want to end my friendship with him because of what we've been through, but I don't want to be just his safety valve when stuff gets canceled. What should I do?
Man, there is a lot there. What's one thing that you picked up on first? We can put it back if you want.
Yeah, sure. I think that there's a relatability to it, at least that I have heard in a lot of friendships, people talking about feeling like they aren't put first, or that the other person isn't giving in their relationship as much as they're putting into their relationship. And for me to, it's, you know, how can you give advice to a stranger on the internet? But there's so much context. I would say the first thing that I would do, foundation of friendship, in my opinion, is communication. So if you felt that there was an imbalance in the effort, I would communicate that to the other person and say, hey, this is just something I've observed. I wanted to check with you if, you know what's going on, and see if there's something else to the story that I'm missing, if there's a reason for this, how you feel, and just checking in how you feel about where we are as friends.
I would also add asking that friend like how they view the friendship and what type of friendship they feel that we're in. And I may do that prior to sharing my feelings, just personally for me, because it may give me a better perspective or allow a little, maybe more empathy, maybe to see things in their space. Maybe it's like, well, I view you as a friend who I reach out to for these reasons, because, and it could be like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Whatever the reason is, or it could just spark the conversation of like, well, maybe we should talk or discuss what a healthy relationship, friendship is for both of us, and maybe share at that point the needs that you may have. But like you said, Hannah, communication has to be the first thing. And if the trust is already there and there is a true friendship, then it should be natural for you to talk about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. I feel like if you feel like you can't tell them that, there is something else at play there that you might want to think about. But I also want to provide like a different perspective. Like I had a friend growing up where I felt that way, kind of like maybe not that he was calling me when he needed something, but I was always the one reaching out. We had fun when we were hanging out, but it felt very unbalanced. It felt like I had to make a ton of effort to make that friendship work, even though I loved spending time with that person. And for a while, I was like thinking about, oh, you know what? He doesn't care, so I'm gonna distance myself from it because it's not working for me. But one thing I realized later on is like I had to accept some parts of who this person is. And I think when I did that, then everything kind of improved, because I wasn't expecting him to be somebody else. Like, I wasn't expecting him to like reach out and call me about stuff. It's not who he is. And that's not what that friendship was for or bringing to the table. And so I feel like I would tell this person, like, try to think about what's the value that you find in this friendship. If there is a value that you can see, even though it might not be exactly reciprocated the same way, and kind of accept the people that you have a relationship with, and maybe if you need that kind of thing, maybe find another friend that can fill that space.
Yeah, there's so many elements in what Bree said earlier, and then what you said. It's hard for me to pick where to go. But I really like this element that you're talking about you caught yourself kind of in a story and in an assumption, Tom, in this situation. And you said, oh, he's acting this way, which means this. And I think assumptions are so detrimental to friendships because you don't know how the other person is feeling. And then linking back to what Bree said with empathy, it's like, okay, yes, I recognize and I respect that I am feeling, neglected, perhaps. What else is going on? Because this friendship is two ways. There's two streets. So, okay, I feel neglected. How are they feeling? And that's not to say that their feelings are more important than your feeling of neglect. It's just a part of the full equation, and you can't ignore the full equation.
Yeah, like Ilaria here saying kind of the empathy and adaptability at the same time, so that you're not stuck in your own thoughts too much.
Yeah. I think it takes a huge, it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to get there, to be able to stop in those moments and think through things, to be able to respond and not react. And then there's also this other element of if the other person is not as emotional or in touch with their emotions, it could potentially, cause still that gap and that need of like wanting more. Because if you are having a conversation and you're talking about feelings and the other person may not either receive or be as in touch, it can be difficult. I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it can make it a little more difficult in those moments.
Yeah. And I think it's really helpful to at least have that strength in yourself first, starting with you before you go there, so that like, okay, this is where I stand and this is what my experience is, and I can objectively see what's going on here for them, and maybe I disagree with it. And I think that that's a huge part of friendships too, is this kind of compromise. It's like we aren't, if we're talking about like different levels of like emotional intelligence and something, it's like maybe we can't fully understand each other on this one topic, and maybe that's a breaking point in a friendship, but maybe it's something to say, depends on the relationship. Maybe it's something to say, but we are grounded by this and we are rooted by this and we share this value. And for those reasons, this friendship is really important to me. And this one moment that's showing us this difference in our emotional intelligence levels, it's maybe I can accept that in this moment, and to kind of have a pick your battles deal.
And I feel like we were talking about this before, like sometimes you have to make that tough call of saying, I have to think about my self-care, caring about, taking care of myself. Sometimes not all the friendship work, and this adaptability you got to stop somewhere. You can't adapt to everything and everything.
And it might be just for a moment. I've had friendships in my life. It's okay, Tom. I've had friendships in my life where I've had to step away based off of something happening, not seeing eye to eye. And sure enough, like years later, I finally first forgave me and stopped holding all the grief and feeling so guilty about having a really close friend who I've no longer friends with. And then after that, just extending the olive branch and saying, hey, like, this is where I'm at. You can't expect that person to be where you are. But when you first are just, I guess, okay with it for you, and then, going about things thereafter, and however it works out. But at first, you have to make sure that you are sound in the decisions that you make with the boundaries that you set.
And that's why EQ really come into place here. Like if I knew more back then, it wouldn't take me like 2 years to figure that out. Like really, it was painful and it was hard. Like if I had this concept, it would have really made it faster and like easier.
I think this is actually, talking about this element of friendship where we're talking about transformations and self-realizations is very relatable if we want to talk about
Is it time for this?
pop culture segment?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, let me bring something up. Whoop. Let's do it this way. Shift you there. Boom.
Awesome. Okay, so today, everybody, we're going to talk about friendship that is displayed in the film Bridesmaids from 2011. Bridesmaids tells the story of Annie, played by Kristen Wiig, who is at a very low point in her life. She has lost the love of her life in the form of her career, her baking, her passion. Her bakery has shut down, and she's not baking. She's working a job that she actually really does not like at a jewelry store. Very unfulfilling. She's in sort of a relationship that's not very healthy. And she's not making that much money. She lives with some terrible people.
For sure.
So she's at a very low point. And in the midst of all of this, her best friend, Lillian, played by Maya Rudolph, is getting engaged. Yay.
Mm.
And Maya throws another stressor in there and says, how about, Annie, you're going to be my maid of honor for the wedding? And Annie says, I would love to. You're my best friend. You've been my best friend for years. Let's do it. And that's when Annie gets introduced to Lillian's new friend, Helen, played by Rose Byrne, that she has some issues with Helen. She has some differences with Helen, and it starts a little bit of what one might call a friendship war. And all of the bridesmaids, as seen in this photograph, are taken on some bridal adventures leading up to Lillian's wedding day. And that's the synopsis.
I watched this movie a while back, and I rewatched it this week just to have a first of all, really funny movie. If you haven't seen it, and you need a laugh, it's great. I didn't mean to cut you off, but there are so many people, so many characters also in this movie. I feel like, and yes, the main three characters have like a really crazy dynamic. But actually, for me, the most interesting thing was this other character. I think her name was Megan, as the one on the far left.
Melissa McCarthy.
First of all, she was the funniest character of all. But what I noticed about her, like I was looking at all this friendship, I just watched it with the EQ lens, right? Which is something that I would recommend you doing because it's like so many things to notice. But like she was so honest and authentic the whole time. She was not apologizing for who she was, and she was like the tough love when it was needed. She was like, I'm a rock. I'm solid, and I'm who I am. And if you like me, great. If you don't, I don't care. That's me. So that's what I love the most. I'm curious to see what you picked up on the movie.
I will agree with you, Tom, that I noted that was one of the main scenes that I wanted to talk about today was with Megan. And I think it could be argued that Megan is like the best friend, like in terms of quality of friend. Are you a good friend? The show we're talking about today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great friend.
Definitely.
Bree, I want to hear your thoughts too.
So throughout the whole movie, it was watching it with the EQ lens was also very interesting. And just also observing how these women were with themselves and how they showed up for themselves. I felt like Lillian was just happy-go-lucky. She didn't really see through much of anything that was going. I mean, she had a breaking point, yes, but in general, it was like, how do you not notice all of your friends going through this really tough time, friends, family, and just kind of coasting through happy-go-lucky? And, thinking about the scene where Helen and Annie were giving speeches that night.
Yeah. How do you not see that? Yeah.
Annie, of course, is sharing her emotional connection, and she's sharing like, you've always been there for me, and you've always been that person that I've needed since they were young friends. And then Helen is like, we're fast friends, you know, all these inside jokes and all these moments that we've shared. And it's just, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about every person in your life that you call friend or that you label however, has a different purpose, and they all show up for different reasons. Because Lillian needed a fun friend. She needed somebody who, you know, who she could kind of rely on. And we all need a lot of different people in our lives for a lot of different reasons. But I just found it most interesting that, you know, Annie struggled with so many different relationships throughout the movie. And it showed up, of course, with her best friend Lillian, but it was funny but interesting.
Yeah, Annie really, it's hard. You can, she's at a terrible point in her life. She's under so much stress, and that's making her act in ways that are not awesome. And
you could argue that a lot of people now are feeling that way, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it took the changing point. It took an amazing friend with strength in her own character integrity, Megan, to let her see that. And that repaired all of her other relationships. Once Megan went in there, and Megan played this role of, you used the term tough love earlier, Tom. I think she also was a reality check. Like, she also played the role of a mirror. And she was like, look at yourself, look at what your life looks like. And I love what she says. She calls her out for having a pity party. And when people put themselves in a pity party state, they are closing themselves off to the connection that will heal that state. Because you really need that connection to help you process all of the things that you're going through. But Annie was just cutting all of these relationships off because she was so stressed out and she was feeling these really high, intense emotions.
Yeah, you know, and the other thing I thought was really interesting is like these barriers that everybody puts up. And I think that's what transcends the movie and really applies to life a lot, because especially when you don't know somebody, and it's a friend of a friend, or maybe not even, you know, we all put up a barrier that's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know what your intentions are. And like, I feel like the breaking point of that, these two like enemies that they were trying to conquer the love and affection of this other friend, they became friends in the process when they were finally able to admit that they were like dealing with something else, that they were able to talk about it.
Yeah. And it took Annie a long time throughout the movie to get to that place where she was like, I'm no longer gonna just brush everything under the rug that's happening. I'm no longer going to just be someone who's observing or experiencing all these strong feelings inside. And then she had a breaking point at the bridal shower that Helen put on.
Wow. What a scene.
And that happens. Like, it's real life where people will build up all of those very, very strong feelings, not completely go through the emotional cycle where it's like, okay, I'm gonna name the feeling, I'm going to ask myself, what is this feeling telling me? And then I'm gonna respond and repair, you know? So
if you let it build up, then it explodes, you know?
Right. And she probably did get the release that she needed, but it was just in a very unhealthy way. And, yeah, I think it's kind of cool, Hannah, that you kind of picked up on Megan being ultimately like the best friend throughout the film.
Yeah. And the funniest character.
And
So I don't know how, but we got 3 minutes left on the clock. So I guess I want to just close it with like, what's like one of the lessons or things that will stay with you after today's talk? And this is a question for everybody. I see a couple comments that I'll bring up while you guys start sharing.
I would first say that, you know, it's important to just note that all of your friendships and the relationships that you build throughout your entire life all just have a different purpose. And it's okay for each of those friendships to fulfill you in different ways, but at the root of them, they require honesty They require you to be emotional and express those emotions. Emotions and friendships go hand in hand, and I think they help build those lasting friendships.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I would, and I'm also loving these beautiful comments that everybody's sharing as well. Those are really interesting.
Yeah, I'm picking up some of them that we couldn't get to earlier, but I loved what John said about, right now it's like we got more time on our hands and we can choose how we use it. And he's had more time to think about what matters for him and really make a conscious effort of reaching out to people more. And I feel like that's something that I would definitely love to try more, even though it's not easy for me. Like I'm gonna have to put some mechanisms, create some new habits for it, because like it doesn't come natural,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think with that, and this is probably my key takeaway too, is that friendship ain't always sunshine and rainbows, and there with it, whether it's when you're making a friend, it's a stranger and the landscape is totally foreign, or it's an argument between friends, or it's just the tricky landscape of being in a pandemic and trying to sustain a friendship. All of those situations require attention to uncomfortable emotions. Mm-hmm. And I think a great way to practice emotional intelligence with those uncomfortable emotions to, get through those times and do what's best for you, you really need curiosity.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I feel like we're out of time. Bree, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think Hannah wrapped it up very nicely.
Awesome. So, we're going to do this show once a month. So the next one is going to be early December. We're going to talk about this crazy holiday time where you get to see family and friends and maybe childhood friends and what happens with those old patterns that you're rediscovering. So that's going to be really fascinating. If you have questions or that you would like to submit or comments for us, you can email us at gme@6seconds.org. So we're going to collect a bunch of comments and questions for next month. So we'd love having you, and what a great conversation. Thanks, Hannah and Bree.
Yes.
This was so fun, and I thank everybody for all the comments that you were sharing too. It felt like we were all having the conversation together.
And yeah, let's not forget that this type of show is going to happen once a month, but every week we have a different show. So next week we have a show on the same time, Friday 8 a.m. And I'm spacing out now on what that is about. I think it's SDG. Yeah, it's for the Sustainable Development Goals on World Children's Day. So we're going to talk about...
That one's actually, I believe, closer to the 20th.
Wow. Well, stay tuned on your email, then. We'll let you know. And thanks for coming. Drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't yet, and give us a like.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.